Matt Walsh is truly triggered when he makes a cancelled video. This time it's about Daniel Radcliffe.
Ever since J.K. Rowling was caught in an act of infidelity, having an adulterous affair with science, the left has been unable to really get over the betrayal. They've been so enraged on such a single-minded mission to punish J.K. Rowling for her dalliance with common sense that even those...
No, the left dislikes J.K. Rowling because she's a bigot, and that's the reason.
...merely associated with Rowling are made to perform acts of public penance. The entire cast of the Harry Potter film series have come out at various points, and they've wanted to make it clear that they do not share Rowling's heretical belief in biology.
Yeah, that's because they're not bigots, and they don't want to be associated with a bigot, so that's why they made it known. Yeah, we don't like this person because she's a bigot.
They've been desperate to signal their allegiance to the trans cult. We're not like her, they cry as they humble themselves before the LGBT god.
Wow, funny cult LGBT god coming from the guy who is a part of a cult and worships a fictional being that communicates messages through talking bushes.
Good and faithful servants. What other basic realities would you like for us to deny? What other bits of nonsensical gibberish do you need us to utter on your behalf? Well, we could put out a statement saying that 2 + 2 = green. Elephants are made of pudding if you want.
Yeah, you could, and you would be considered stupid because reality says that 2 + 2 = 4, and not green, and that elephants aren't made of peanut butter, and that trans people are people, and they exist.
Anything for you, O lords. Chief among these grovelers is Harry Potter himself, Daniel Radcliffe, who clearly recognizes that he is potentially the most guilty by association. As the star of Rowling's fantasy series, he feels called to speak the loudest about this.
Well, he claims that Daniel Radcliffe is against TERFs and pro-trans because he feels guilty, and not because he believes in human rights. That's pretty wild.
He must do the most to repudiate the author's bigoted belief in reality. The result is that Radcliffe has now taken a public position that is even more fictional and fantastical than the world of wizards that Rowling created.
Yeah, coming from the guy that actually believes in like magic and witches and witchcraft and fictional gods and talking bushes and donkeys and serpents and stuff like that. He is far from being rational while claiming that he is a rational person, and it's pretty funny in my opinion.
I mean, if Radcliffe had come out and announced that Hogwarts is a real place where actual children fly on broomsticks and learn how to do magical spells, it would have been less outrageous and more credible than the position he's actually taken.
Yeah, coming from a dude who believes in like magic and stuff, that would be definitely credible for him.
Because instead he's professed to believe in transgenderism, especially trans kids, quote unquote. Recently he sat down for a roundtable discussion with these alleged trans kids in a video produced by the left-wing extremist group, the Trevor Project. Watch.
I learned from, out of the cradle that I am, that I was a boy. I should like blue, I should like sports, I should be manly, I should like superheroes, yeah? And I never associated myself with those things, and we are told that we're not old enough to know this yet. I'm only 11 years old, how do I know I'm a girl? And I need more time to think about this.
Not really. I mean, people usually, for the most part, most people know who they like and what they like when it comes to the, gender spectrum and stuff. If they like chicks, they're gonna know it. They're not gonna, be interested in dating guys. And if they're interested in guys, they're gonna be like, yeah, this dude's cute. I don't really like this girl. I've never been into you know, girls. It's the same with, growing up, you know what you like, and you can make the decision for yourself.
He doesn't like blue, sports, or superheroes. That's how we know he's a girl.
Well, yeah, also, those types of things are associated with boys, and that's the type of stuff that is marketed towards boys. The color blue. If boys wear pink, people like Matt Walsh would get upset for boys wearing pink, and same with the marketing community. If various things that are supposed to be marketed towards boys uh, starts getting the attention of the girls, they will stop that. That's why, like, for a large part of time, games was just marketed towards boys because that was associated with boys, and that's how society saw it.
It's not how he decided that he's a girl. I mean, he's a child. He didn't decide anything. Rather, it's how the adults in his life decided for him. So,
But he doesn't even know if that was the case or not. That's just something he's making up.
we see once again how the only people rigidly enforcing so-called gender roles are the gender ideologues themselves. They are such believers in gender roles. They so firmly insist that boys must like boy things, quote unquote, that any boy who doesn't like those things is labeled a girl by them.
Yeah, that's what right wingers do. The most extreme gender ideologues, like the anytime a guy seems slightly feminine, they're called gay. That's why when men started getting into being more hygienic, they were considered metrosexual, and right wingers were considering them to be gay.
Them. This is gender role reinforcement taken to grotesque extremes. It's something that the most avid right-wing believer in gender roles never would have even considered. I myself believe in gender roles. That is, I believe that there are certain roles, certain attitudes and behaviors that society should expect from a person based on their sex. I believe that.
Yeah, like women shouldn't be able to work and should only be at the house cleaning and taking care of kids.
That doesn't mean that someone who rejects those roles isn't a member of the sex anymore. Also, when I talk about gender roles, I mean like more important things, like we should teach boys how to be protectors and providers, that kind of gender role.
But women can be protectors and providers as well. That's why they protect their kids and provide for them. Does that mean they're men? No.
Couldn't care less if they like superheroes or the color blue. Who gives a damn about that?
You seem to. That's why you're going to be talking for a long time about it.
So the gender ideologue not only ruthlessly and violently enforces gender roles, but enforces specifically the most superfluous and meaningless ones.
Well, it's funny how he says violently when the people that are talking to Daniel aren't being violent whatsoever.
By the way, I know something about boys who don't care about sports or superheroes. I'm raising two of them right now. Both of my older sons are only nominally interested in superheroes, and neither of them have shown any great interest in sports, aside from, shooting hoops out in the driveway on occasion. But
Okay, no one really cares.
my 9-year-old son prefers to build forts in the woods. That's what he likes to do. My 6-year-old prefers to follow his older brother around and annoy him with whatever he's doing. That's basically his hobby right now.
Okay, and how does that mean anything against what the person said about how she felt?
What's the significance of their lack of interest in sports and superheroes? There is no significance. It doesn't matter. Okay? I mean, I'm as conservative as you can get when it comes to these issues, right? And I embrace that. Like I said, I embrace the fact that we don't want gender roles.
Yeah, he embraces the fact that he's a crazy religious nut.
Fully embrace gender roles. I think they're a good thing. But even I, with my own sons, I'm not like, well, you need sit down and watch Batman. You have to like Batman. You're a boy.
But if he did decide to play with Barbie dolls and play with easy bake ovens and stuff like that, he would obviously be upset with that because that is quote unquote girls stuff.
I don't do that. Nobody does that. Okay? Nobody cares that much about it. There are many ways to be a...
And honestly, yeah, there are a lot of hardcore Christian families that do care about what their kids play with. There are a lot of men who see boys playing with girl stuff and be like, "Oh, that's not boy stuff. You shouldn't be playing with that. That's gonna make you turn out gay." Blah blah blah. So yeah, Matt Walsh, quite a lie right there, and you know it.
A boy. This is the truly accepting view of the matter. So it's the left who declares that there is only one way, and any boy who exists in any other way is kicked out of the boy club.
No, that is the right winger. That's why when right wing men will say, "Oh, you lost your man card," when you show emotion.
Let's continue.
But there are also people who do have like a slightly condescending but well-meaning attitude of like, well, people are young and like, how do we, you know, there is a huge decision. I'd love to hear from all of you about like why we can trust kids to like tell us who they are.
Well, I just feel like, well, me and you kind of share like a similar story. I transitioned like super young. I came out to my mom and, well, not telling her I was.
The best argument against this, if if you know you're straight growing up and that you're cis, then what's the difference than, you know, people growing up knowing that they're trans or they're gay or something? It's like you don't have to be like 18 and know your sexuality and your gender identity.
Trans, but told her that I was a girl at the age of 6. It's been like years. Like, what I've lived female more than I've ever lived male. So like, I just feel like it's just living proof that I obviously knew who I was, just like everyone else does.
I don't understand why I can't just decide that I'm a girl. If it's a big decision to decide I'm a girl, it's a big decision to decide I'm a boy.
Right.
It's the same thing. There's no age. You don't have to be 18 to decide that, oh, I am who I am.
And I agree with her. You don't have to be 18. People know before they're 18 who they like, you know, what, okay, well, I can't say everybody. For the most part, they know their gender identity and their sexuality before they're 18.
I think we don't give children enough credit for coming into this world and having a sense of purity and understanding for themselves. Like, I definitely had that at a very young age, and I tried to express that a lot, but I grew up in like a very stereotypically Christian family.
Okay.
So like...
Yeah, and growing up in a stereotypical Christian family, they will stifle any type of questioning of themselves or others because, you know, if it's not just straight God, then it's just evil.
Me telling my mom any type of me being different was like, oh my God, like literally she called my grandma and they prayed over me. I was like 7. I was
That's
like
intense.
7. And like at that very moment, like it was very like fearful, like fear striking. But like at the same time, if we're going to be able to like have relationships and be authentic with each other, this is something that I need you all to get, you know?
Yeah. But
Yeah, because imagine, you know, coming out to your family as a kid and being like, this is who I feel I am, and then them just freaking out, calling you a bad person for that. It's pretty traumatic. And yeah, the Christian religion basically bases itself on a lot of trauma.
I would love to hear from you also about just like, as I said, like I always knew I was a boy because it was just a thing that I grew up knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody ever questions cis people knowing that they're cis growing up. You know, a boy, you know, getting a girlfriend as a kid, nobody ever questions, and it's like, oh, you don't know who you like. You're only, you know, 7 or 8 or 9. You know, when I was 5, I was doing pretend marriages with my neighbor, and nobody was like, oh, you can't do that. You don't know that you're into girls or whatever, blah, blah, blah. They were like, yeah, that's cute. You have a pretend marriage. We played house. Nobody ever questioned that.
So everything that these kids are saying is nonsense. It's gibberish. One of the kids says that the fact that he announced his fictional female identity when he was 6 somehow proves that it's legitimate. But I believed this when I was 6 is not a convincing defense for literally any proposition. 6-year-olds believe lots of things about the world and themselves that are not so. This is one of the hallmarks of early childhood. It also has been one of the most, had been one of the most charming and joyful things about childhood. The fact.
Yeah, but when people that believe in fairy tales tell you that they're 40 and they believe in a fictional being of the Bible, that's totally okay, right? No, that's unquestioned or should be unquestioned by society. Hey, talking bushes are okay. Various random miracles are okay, like people raising from the dead or walking on the water or somehow magically turning pots of water into wine without, any form of yeast or fermentation. Yeah, you know, it's funny how right-wing Christians want to talk about like rationality and stuff when they base all they base their entire life around irrational an irrational belief system.
fact that kids are so innocent and oblivious. But the left has exploited this innocence in the most insidious kind of way. The other boy says that choosing to transition into a girl isn't a big decision any more than it would be a big decision to choose to remain a boy. But that's like saying that a 9-year-old choosing to be a commercial airline pilot isn't any more of a big decision than choosing to not be a commercial airline pilot. Just because.
Yeah, nobody ever questions that. I mean, what's honestly the difference? Somebody wants to choose to be who they want to be or what they want to be. That's no issue. This honestly doesn't affect Matt Walsh whatsoever, but he also knows that his audience will get triggered by people wanting to be who they want to be and using their freedoms to be that way.
Because one decision is big doesn't mean that the reverse of that decision is also big. Of course, my analogy doesn't totally work because it is at least technically possible for a 9-year-old to pilot a plane. It's not a good idea, but it's possible. It's not possible for a 9-year-old or for anyone of any age to become the opposite sex. So again, this is.
Yeah, but 9-year-olds aren't becoming the opposite sex. They are proclaiming that they are in the wrong body, and the opposite body is who they are supposed to be. Nobody is transitioning at 9 years old. That doesn't happen. People are usually required to wait until they are 18 or, legal adults. And right-wingers they still have a problem with that. Legal adults being able to choose what they want to do with their life because they want to be trans and not, cis people being Christian.
Is all nonsensical, but I don't judge these children, obviously, or feel any, contempt towards them. They're abuse victims. They've been brainwashed. They've been led down a path, and they've been made to believe that it's a path they chose. And now they are offering retroactive justifications for this path that was actually chosen for them.
Okay, so he claims that they're abuse victims and their paths have been chosen for them. Okay.
And they're not justifications that they came up with, but rather they are talking points that they were given and that they were told to repeat on occasions like this. So I have an immense amount of sympathy for these kids.
Do you now? Is that why you're against, trans people? Because you have sympathy for them?
But Daniel Radcliffe, on the other hand, is a different story. Notice how Radcliffe ever so meekly pushes back, and attentively suggesting that maybe somebody might raise an arguably somewhat valid concern about, whether children are old enough to make these kinds of decisions. It's totally patronizing, of course, he hastens to add. It's patronizing, and they're wrong for saying it, but how should we respond to these questions?
Yeah, because he's curious as to how they respond to the typical questions by right wingers.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Daniel, you know better. You're only a few years younger than me. You grew up in a world where the biological reality of male and female was not in question, which is the same world that every generation of human beings, except the most recent one, grew up in.
Well, in the ancient past, intersex people were accepted. The Greeks had a god of intersex people called Hermaphrodites, who was intersex. You had, and there's been a number of various cultures that accepted the LGBTQ community and intersex people and the such, and it was never questioned because they all saw it as natural. It's only been pretty recently that seeing trans people as unnatural and stuff has been the newest satanic petting by the right. Now that they can't, target gay people.
So they didn't get to you soon enough or young enough for you to actually buy this garbage. You cannot have been convinced because nobody's ever presented an argument in defense of this stuff. It's not that they've made bad arguments, it's that they've made no arguments. So there was never a moment when someone came along and said to you, hey, actually little boys can really be girls and we should give them drugs to make them into girls even though they already are girls. But they're girls invisibly, you see, and so they're girls.
No, they're not girls. They're not, of the opposite sex and invisibly. It's that the mind and brain does not match the body, and they are using hormone therapy to change the outer appearance to match the inner appearance. And why shouldn't people have the freedom to do that? It's funny how right-wingers claim that they're the party of, freedom and stuff. And then when people start using their freedoms that they want in a way that right-wingers don't like, it ends up becoming evil. And then they want to create some kind of conspiracy. Right-wingers are some of the most paranoid people you can ever meet. Just let them talk, It's just like with Matt Walsh. It's just nothing but paranoia.
Girls in some kind of, in some sort of abstract sense, and that's what we need the drugs for. And then no one said that to you, and then you said, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay, I mean, you've convinced me. No, that didn't happen because a mostly sane and moderately intelligent person cannot be persuaded by unintelligible gibberish.
Right. A sane dude. A religious nut who believes that a fictional being is judging him and the entire world, and if they don't follow his exact words, they're going to go burn in a lake of fire for all eternity. Yeah, dude, that is extremely rational to a T.
So there can't be any I get it moment because there's nothing to get. You weren't convinced by arguments or by any kind of reasoning process. You were instead, like most other adults on the left, convinced in the same way that, a shop owner in the 1940s would have been convinced to accept the protection of the mob. The mob doesn't...
In the 1940s, black people were also being, treated like animals.
Doesn't come to a business and present a proposal, a business proposal, and then give you a week to weigh the pros and cons. They extract your compliance through threat and force.
But who is being threatened and who is being forced here? And nobody. But right-wingers are threatening and forcing trans people to be who the right-wingers want them to be, like in Tennessee, where they did have a law that has been halted for a little bit by the judge, where you were forced to detransition, which, how do you do that? But the only people that are actually doing the forcing is the right-wingers, but Matt Walsh loves to project his BS onto people and twist it to fearmonger his audience into thinking that it's the left wing that are forcing their beliefs onto other people, when it's just left wingers are like, hey, we should also have equal rights. And then it's right wingers who are like, no, we believe we should be able to murder you.
And that is exactly how the LGBT mob operates. You have been encouraged to promote the trans agenda, encouraged with the promise that if you don't, they'll rip your life to shreds and also your career.
Right. Who decided to boycott Anheuser-Busch and Jack Daniels over the acceptance of trans people? Well, it wasn't left-wingers. That's right-wingers.
It's been hard enough for the Harry Potter guy to get any good roles outside of the Harry Potter franchise. Imagine how hard it would be if the Harry Potter guy was also a transphobe.
Right, because he has been in a ton of movies since leaving since getting done with the Harry Potter movies. So, it would be harder for him to get movies if he was a transphobe, but he's not, and he's been in a ton of roles.
So that's the calculation that you made. You may take comfort in the fact that you're only going along with this sinister madness because you feel you have no other choice, but you should realize that.
But he has choices, and he's chosen to not be a transphobe because he supports human rights, which has given him greater options because a large part of society is not transphobic and bigoted and just hateful because of their shitty-ass religion.
Every era has its own sort of sinister madness, and every person who's ever gone along with it has made the exact same rationalization that you are making now.
Yeah, a sinister madness like claiming that women shouldn't have the right to vote because they're hysterical because they have wandering wombs, or black people shouldn't be able to have rights because they're animals and super predators, or that gay people shouldn't be allowed to marry because they're demons and evil. It's like right-wingers always go with some kind of crazy thing to try to make it seem like the people they're against are extremely bad people when all they want is equal rights.
And yet we look back on those people with disgust. They were faced with a test: stand for what's right and true and endure the consequences, or cooperate with evil for the sake of their own self-preservation. And they
stick with evil for their own self-preservation. First, he was saying trans people are just abuse victims being forced to go along with a certain idea, and now he's calling these same abuse victims evil. That's quite hilarious. So, does he truly care about these people? No. He only cares about kids when it benefits him and a certain agenda.
They failed the test. And they're defined forever and for all time by that failure, just as you will be. You sat in a room full of child abuse victims and you applauded their abuse. You are a disgrace and a coward and a liar. You sold whatever fragments of your soul you still had left.
So who did he sell it to? Baphomet, Zeus, Pluto? Did he sell it to Hell or God or Allah? Did he sell it to Hermes or Ra, or there's so many gods. Who can he sell it to? Did he sell it to the Zoroastrian divinities, or who? And it's like it's funny when Christians want to bring up selling souls or the worship of a god. It's like, there's many gods that have been created, and you act like your disbelief in those gods make you somehow special because you believe in one god that has been created out of the thousands of gods. It's like, Stop acting like you're special, because you're not, and your God isn't special. It's just another fictional being.
I hope it was worth it, but I know that it wasn't. Because again, it never is. And that's why you are today canceled. And that'll do it for...
I love that he's doing his quote-unquote cancel videos while claiming that he's not against cancel culture, or the right wing isn't against cancel culture, when they started cancel culture by lynching black people for wanting rights after, black people got freed and the KKK started. But you know what to do. Like, share, definitely leave a comment, and subscribe. Peace out.